There have been moments throughout history that call on us to act. That time is always now. The winds of change are harvested here. We've had moments of incredible adversity. Our strength has always grown from diversity. Our resolve is nurtured by a call to fight for what's right. We are not pawns to be sacrificed. When the time comes, will you stand with us? TCCS, building a better community. What's going on, everybody? Give me a second. I'm going to try to adjust this chat window so that I can see what people are saying and or commenting. So this is a new format that we're going to be testing out that is going to allow us to have some live community forums so that we can open up conversations that should be happening more often without the trouble of having to organize in-person events and get people to come all to one spot. This is basically just another way for us to organize, to talk to the community, share solutions, share ideas, and spark conversations about topics that are important. So we want people's feedback throughout this whole process. And generally what we're doing today essentially is introducing people to this format. And from there, we can, see where this leads. This is basically just a jump off point. Right now, we've got a Discord chat set up. So it's basically just a way for us to allow people to join in the conversation directly. So if you had something to say, you wanted to, a message that you wanted to convey to your neighborhood or your community, then we could bring you on. If you had some ideas that you wanted to share with us, we could bring you on. So it's essentially like a way to call in, but basically we'll put the information in this chat and along with this video so that people can see how to download the Discord app, install it on their device. You can basically put it on your phone, on your computer, and it's just a great networking tool. Even if you're not talking with us directly, you can actually set up your own server, and you basically it allows you to communicate with people essentially. So nothing too crazy or novel. It's just a good tool to use. We're going to use it for the purpose of getting people on the show, talking with people, doing interviews, and talking about some creative solutions that people are doing all around the Tri-Cities. So we want the conversation to be generally Tri-Cities specific, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. So, we can talk about larger issues, but for the purpose of this show, the intention, for me at least, is to focus on creative ways that we can provide basic human needs for people within the community. Ways that we can set up a kind of direct safety net. We've been active in the community for a long time, and there's a lot of issues that we're passionate about. So, but for this particular forum, for this particular show, we want to focus on the good things, the positive things that are happening in the community, and ways that we can affect positive change and organize and get people involved. So, like I said, this is just kind of the initial jump off for that. You guys probably noticed that we didn't really promote this or anything. This is just to introduce the format, to let people know that we are going to be putting our ear to the ground and inviting people on. And just to experiment, really. Because it's likely that this show will evolve over time, and we probably will see it grow into something that maybe this won't really be representative of. But too often, I think our community has so much going on, and it's very difficult to filter through, what the media puts out there versus what we might think is an important topic or an important subject. There's a lot of really cool things that are happening that the media doesn't even touch on. So, excuse me. This is going to give us an opportunity to really own in on those specific issues and open the conversation up. So, if you have any ideas or feedback as far as that goes, then share this video. Let people know that we're doing this. You can comment right here in the comment section, and as we're doing these videos, basically as you comment, it'll pop up right here on screen. So just keep that in mind. That's something that's we're going to basically try out, because we want people to be involved in the conversation. We want people to be able to voice their concerns. Obviously, we'll probably need to do some moderation depending on who jumps in the chat, but we're grown-ups, and we can have this conversation in an open way with live feedback. And I think that this way we can call attention to some of the problems in the community, some of the things where maybe there's an opportunity for us to do something positive, and maybe by channeling this energy together and having a conversation about it, we'll open it up to people who maybe didn't realize that it was that big of an issue. There's any number of topics that I could go with on that. I mean, we have a growing population of people without homes in the Tri-Cities. So that's an area of focus for me in particular. Obviously, Tri-Cities Community Solutions has been very vocal about interactions with police and ways that we can evolve that so that we're keeping our community safe in every possible way. So I think the focus for me, like I said, is going to be on things like community gardens, things like tiny homes, things like anything essentially that's going to bring basic needs and provide access for people so that they can provide for themselves. And we want to be able to get the conversation started on what people can basically do in their neighborhoods. What's going on in your neighborhood that you think is positive? What things do you think that we could do differently? Because I think for some reason in our culture, in our society, we have a tendency to close off, and we basically just isolate ourselves. We go to work, we go to our job, we punch in, we punch out, we come home, and then we try to escape in different ways. Maybe you spend time with your kids, maybe you go out and hang out with your friends. But regardless of the situation, I think that we could all benefit from having a kind of intentional, organized conversation about what we could do together in our neighborhoods to improve our quality of life, to make getting access to things like energy or even internet or access to food, access to clean water. There's things that we can do as a neighborhood or as a collection of families to create solutions that we may not be able to do on our own. And it may make more sense to introduce solutions that are larger scale than just, say, your house alone. For example, a community garden may not make sense for just one person to have for their family. Maybe there's a piece of land, or maybe someone is willing to donate a piece of land to allocate for a community garden, in which case, the entire community could be, or that entire area, that neighborhood or whatever could be, could work together to keep that going. And I've seen all kinds of solutions, like people setting up off-grid energy, or even internet sharing. For example, a lot of times in a neighborhood, houses will be fairly close together, and every house or every apartment or whatever has their own Wi-Fi or their own internet connection. And sometimes that's nice. Sometimes we need that. But sometimes, we're not home, or, you basically have an opportunity to share Wi-Fi or share other things like that. In order to, like, basically we could improve our quality of life, lower our bills. And there's lots of different innovative ways to do that. That's just one example. So at any rate, I think people will get a basic idea of what I'm getting at. And we're also open to other topics as well. This is just a way for us to get started, a way for us to introduce this format and begin to grow that conversation, because there's certainly more that we can be doing. And so I don't know if anybody's currently watching, but if you are, you can comment in the comment section here directly, and join into this interactive conversation. So anyway, here, I'll show you. I'll just go over to the page, and I'm going to be commenting as the page, but I just wanted to show you to give you an example. Okay, so yeah, I just said, hello, my name is Jeremy, and I have a question. So the most kind of crude example I could come up with, I guess, just simply to show that we're able to, I guess that's it. Okay. So yeah, we could field questions directly from the comment section. And then if people want to come in and join in voice, then there's different ways we could do that. Discord seems like the easiest way. Basically, once you had the Discord app installed, you would just, you can see the link up over here. Basically, once you have Discord installed, then you can highlight that link and paste it into your browser or whatever, and it'll send you an automatic invite so that you can join the voice conversation. Or alternatively, I can send people invites, if that makes more sense. TCCS for life. Yeah, that's right, Leo. We got to stay active and we got to stay involved. This is basically the format that I was telling you about. This is a trial run to kind of introduce people to what we can do. And it would also be, it's another thing that we could do, for example, is if you go out and you do an interview with someone or you do a report, what we could do is show that video or show that interview right here on the show, and then have a discussion about it, or anything. So, I mean, we can bring material into this video feed. We can show videos. We can show pictures, and nothing is really taboo. But what I want to focus on is positive things, and possibly missed opportunities within the community to try to make people's lives better. Let's create access so that people can improve their lives. And it sounds generic. It sounds kind of vague at this point, I guess. But as we continue with the conversation, it'll be easier, I think. And we can check in with different neighborhoods. For example, if we can get certain individuals that feel comfortable, I guess, speaking for their community, or being a kind of ambassador for their neighborhood, then we can check in with those people and say, hey, how's it going in your neighborhood, on your street, or whatever? How are things going this week? And then, we can get feedback, and we can begin to see what really the issues are, and how we might be able to coordinate to create points of access for whatever's needed in that neighborhood or that area. So it's something that we basically try to facilitate with the Facebook page in general, but this is just another way of having a kind of more involved, more interactive conversation. And a lot of times what happens is we'll get into these private conversations online, or for us internally as an organization, we'll have conversations about what we can do, ways to affect change in the community, but it's kind of in a vacuum, and it doesn't have that direct feedback that we might, and not every conversation is ideal for that. But, this is one way that we can have kind of an open discussion that has that immediate visibility with the public to engage in topics that can probably benefit from that type of atmosphere, that type of dynamic. So I realize, I didn't promote this, and that was intentional. I didn't want to debut this and pump it up and everything and then not have things work. So this is kind of a test run as well. But the topic that I put for this video is essentially mutual aid. So yeah, we want to develop ways to provide for each other, provide for ourselves, and coordinate solutions that make sense for everyone, where when we give, we're helping ourselves and we're helping the people around us. And it's probably the most genuine way to develop and improve our community. So I appreciate any and all feedback on this. The other thing that I wanted to make sure to say was that these videos will be archived on our YouTube channel. So I'll try to also provide a link to that in this video description or in the comments. And we'll post it on our Facebook page as well so that people can access the archived live shows. And it's my intention to do these as often as possible. So we'll see what makes sense. And, there's a lot of different ways we could handle this. So, but yeah, we want to try to have these conversations regularly so that we can keep a pulse on the community. We can track certain solutions that that we had started and see how it develops. We can monitor things to see if things are working or not. And we just want to get those feedback loops started so that, I hope that makes sense to everyone. We want to be more in tune with our neighborhoods and with our neighbors. And it's not always easy. So, because of how our society is, I think some neighborhoods are friendlier than others. Some people will actually talk to their neighbors and go out and visit with them. And I think depending on where you live, that dynamic is different. If you live in an apartment complex, sometimes people are more isolated. Not always, but so the dynamic is going to be different depending on the layout of your neighborhood and what your living situation is. So it may not always make sense to be directly in chat or talking with your neighbors, whatever the situation may be. But with something like this, you can kind of keep track of what's going on in your area and have another way to possibly organize or communicate with your neighborhood that might make more sense for certain things. So I'm basically just kind of throwing ideas out there, brainstorming, and I kind of want to keep that show or this show in that kind of format. So that we can, just see what works. And so this is just a starting point in terms of what we can do. For example, I was saying earlier, we could show video or pictures. So if there's a particular hot topic or something that we feel like we need to address now, we can pull in video or an article or whatever, and then go through things. So yeah, does anybody watching have any questions or want to make any comments as to what we've covered so far or any ideas? I'm just going to leave that open. That's why we've got this comment section here. But yeah, this video, this initial video I'll probably keep it short. Because yeah, I didn't really have anything major that I wanted to discuss. I wanted to introduce the format. I wanted to give people an opportunity to see, like, okay, Tri-Cities Community Solutions is doing a live show now. And we do have a website, Hans. It's tricitiescs.org, and it's still under development. So some of the pages don't really have any content yet, but we've got the basic structure there. And the hope is that we're going to introduce different things as we go. Ideally, we'll probably have a page that can show our archived videos, just like the YouTube page. And so that's kind of an ongoing thing. We don't really have anybody specifically assigned for doing the web development. I was basically doing some of the web development, and so it all depends on the amount of time that I have to dedicate to developing that further. So this show, I think, is important in the sense that it gives us that direct feedback. Do you have a public meetings offline as well? Thank you for that question, Jessica. Right now, we currently don't have any in-person offline meetings, except for periodically we have internally within our organization to make sure that we have our paperwork correct and things like that. We do have some voice conferencing that we do. But we want to try to get that, neighborhood involvement of community organizing going in a more effective way. And so for me personally, I'm not always able to go and do these in-person meetings or take time out to do that. But we want to empower the community. That's it. That's our website, Hans. We want to empower people to be able to do that. So for me, this was kind of like a personal journey and decision in the sense that I wanted to stay active and encourage people to organize, but I'm not necessarily always able to be out there and doing that work. So I thought, what can I do from here, from home, essentially? I set up a little makeshift studio here that I use for some other live streaming content that I do. And so it's a great opportunity for me to use the equipment that I already have in a positive way for the community. So, we want to do in-person meetings. We want to, I appreciate the General Assembly kind of model. I appreciate for example, there's a Neighborhood Action Committee, or I think that's what they're called in Seattle, and I think there's one in Tacoma as well. But yeah, I think, we need regular in-person meetings as well. I think that's really important, and it allows you to meet people face to face. It allows you to it's because our neighborhoods are real. And if we're going to be doing community organizing and work within our neighborhoods, then we have to know the people involved, and we have to, join hands and take on these challenges together. So we'll definitely let people know if there's anything specifically that we're organizing as far as meetings. And if other people in the community, anyone wants to begin organizing in their neighborhood in the vein of these kinds of ideas that we're talking about, then just contact us, and we'll help facilitate that. If you're having a meeting centered around a specific topic, or you want to get just have a meetup to tackle a specific issue that you think is important, we can help facilitate that. We can get the word out. We can talk about it here on the show, and use our public page, our Facebook page, and our Twitter or whatever to also get the word out. So, and maybe there's more that we could do as well. But I'm just speaking off the cuff as far as, how we can engage that kind of thing. So I don't personally want to commit to say, yeah, we're going to be having in-person meetings here at this time and whatever, because part of my issue is that I'm a home care aide. And so I'm not always able to get away and and do those kinds of things at this time. So, but there's definitely people within or that have been active with Tri-Cities Community Solutions in the past, and people that are active now that may be able to do that and want to do that. So just reach out to us, and then if we come up with some in-person meetings, then we'll definitely let people know and we'll promote that. Excuse me. But yeah, that's our website. More generally, just to give people an idea of what my perspective is and how I look at the issues that we face. Hey, thank you, Hans. Appreciate you jumping in the conversation. It's one of those things where until somebody says something, I think sometimes people don't always jump in. So thank you for stopping by and thank you for participating. Appreciate that. We'll be doing these fairly regularly, so if you see it pop up on your feed, feel free to jump in and join us, and we'll keep these conversations going. But yeah, sorry if I'm too hot on this mic. I can see it clipping every once in a while, and I try to back up a little bit. But yeah, so I basically advocate for a different type of economy altogether. So my views are controversial to some people. I'm not an advocate for capitalism. I feel like the way that we organize society now is not sustainable, and I think there's plenty of evidence to show that. So rather than fight the system or get all bent out of shape over whatever political agenda is being implemented, I think that it's time that we organize proactively in our communities to provide the needs that we all need access to, basic human needs. Let's just do it. And, forget the political shenanigans. There's not to say that it's not important to engage some of those things, but I think that there also has to be a active, intentional kind of mission to organize our communities so that we can provide for ourselves, because we can't always appeal to government. We can't always appeal to larger corporations or institutions to step up and provide the things that we need. So that means that as a community, as neighbors, we got to say, hey, look, maybe we can share food, or maybe we can collect rainwater and cut down on our water bill, or whatever. There's like literally thousands of things that we could do in order to be more effective, be more cost effective, and make our lives a little bit easier and release some of that tension so that we're not always at odds with each other whenever they throw out another divide and conquer kind of strategy. Because a divided population is much easier to govern, right? So if we unite, then we can begin to govern ourselves, and we can be more responsible in terms of how we take on the issues that may be popping up. So I think that's the biggest message that I can convey as far as the purpose and the intention of the conversations here in this live show, is that we want to empower people. We want people to feel like they can organize, and we want people to feel like they can have a direct effect on solving the problems that they face. So, just as a simple example, sometimes towards the end of the month, especially if people are on state assistance, a lot of times people end up running out of food, or they'll run out of their food assistance dollars. So if we had more community gardens, if we had more food sharing programs, then that could offset those kinds of shortcomings towards the end of the month. And there's lots of examples, lots of other ways that we can help people. But for example, like food banks. I don't know if any of you have been to a food bank recently, but every time that I've ever gone, it's been it's interesting to see the kinds of foods that are donated and in what quantities, and depending on when you go, you might get a different it's going to be different every time, basically. But one thing that I consistently noticed was that the produce, the fresh fruits and veggies, were not only lacking, but what they did have were kind of these oddball things, not necessarily staples in, like, I'm just saying the quality can probably improve. And if we have greater access to producing fresh fruits and vegetables, then it becomes less of an issue. For example, you could go to the food bank to get your canned foods and maybe breads or stuff like that, and then the community garden could pick up the slack, I guess, in terms of fresh fruits and vegetables. Because, if we're talking about the health of a community, food is essentially a key part of that conversation. So, anyway, beyond that, obviously housing is a huge undertaking in terms of not only local policy, creating access, getting people involved. Yeah, I like the community gardens idea. I agree, Jessica. That's there's a lot of people actually that are into that, and it's not one of those. Most of these ideas in terms of providing access for people, but particularly community gardens, I think it resonates no matter what your political ideology is. It's like, hey, food, gardens, fruits and veggies, why not, right? And I think the key issue, one of the things that we've found going through the conversation of community gardens, is that the biggest challenge is getting the people in that neighborhood or area involved in terms of being willing to maintain the gardens. So that's another reason why I wanted to make a point to talk about those things on the show, because if where you're at, you need access to food, and you think a community garden would be a good idea for your neighborhood, you can holler at us and you can say, hey, we would like to start a community garden over here, and what do we do? And so there's several efforts underway already. One of them in particular that I can think of off the top of my head is in Pasco, and it's an initiative that we were involved with at one point, but we didn't have the manpower essentially to take it on alone. So it's fallen into other hands, and essentially it's still going forward. But these are the kinds of things that happen where people get busy in their day-to-days, and it's really something that the local community needs to take on and push for. So, it's one thing for example, I'm a Kennewick resident, to say, hey, you over there in Pasco, in this particular area, a community garden would be cool right here, right? And it's like, yeah, it would be cool. But, it has to be something that the local community really pulls and takes ownership of and takes responsibility for. And so I think that when it comes to community gardens, it has to be like, hey, we need one here. I want one here. And then you start getting people involved right there locally. And because that's the biggest challenge is getting people to take it on. And it can't really be maintained by someone from a different area, So yeah, we can help facilitate. We can provide whatever resources are available to us. We can connect people, because we've over the years we've developed a network of people who we know are interested in these kinds of solutions, and so we can connect people and make these things happen. And that's the idea anyway. So if you know a community in need, and people that live there, or maybe it's your neighborhood or whatever, then let's do it. Let's make it happen. Let's get people connected and see what we can do. And the other thing is, obviously we want to stay engaged with the local city councils and local politicians, I guess you could say, in terms of conveying these ideas, especially if it's more large scale solutions. There's definitely things that we can do that would require, I think, more attention from community officials, and that's okay too. I mean, we can basically take on any level, any scale that we want. It's just a matter of getting people focused and to accomplish that. So, a lot of times there's big development things going on, like the what's the one that's going on in the airfield in Kennewick or whatever, where the airport used to be. Huge project underway over there or whatever. So we'll see how it goes, but there might be some opportunities there, for example, in terms of getting people access, or when they put in these huge projects, like the project that's going on along the river, to bring in the wine country kind of thing. Maybe there's opportunities there where we can convey that maybe there's something that we can provide for the local community beyond the wine drinking, or maybe there's some kind of collaboration there that can be relevant for people who live in this area. So we still want to engage with those kinds of topics and grow that conversation to see what we can do, partnerships that we can have with ongoing ideas and projects that are already underway. But I think realistically, the urban farming guy. Thanks, Hans. The urban farming guy is amazing. I mean, the work that he's done is incredible. Same thing. Let's see. There's actually a couple that I can think of off the top of my head. There was the guy who did little greenhouse farming, where he did like aquaponics. I think it was aquaponics anyway, and he was growing like massive amounts of food in aquaponic farms. Basically, it was like fairly small and very low tech, low cost. But then there's the guy in I think he's in Compton, right? Where he's basically just growing gardens right there on the streets, out in the open weather or whatever. And I think that makes sense, obviously, in California. Here, we might be able to do that. But I think, even greenhouses might make more sense, especially during the fall, winter months for the Tri-Cities. But there's lots of examples out there where people are taking, food generation and access to food very seriously, and they're making things happen. And so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can look at what people are doing in other communities and leverage that. We can say, hey, let's do that here. So I appreciate that, Hans. I mean, that's true. I mean, we have to just start planting right there along the side of the street. And obviously you got to work with, the rest of your neighborhood and probably the city, but it's a battle, or I don't know if you'd want to call it a battle, depending on, we don't know. Would it be a battle? Maybe the city would be all for it. I think it just depends on who's involved, the context of the conversation, but we can definitely make those kinds of things happen. And that's why we got to have the conversation. We got to talk about it, because, I don't think those kinds of solutions really happen from, it's a food fight. I mean, it's crazy, because one of the things that that guy said, for example, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Maybe I'll look him up real quick. But one of the things that he said was, that, we've gotten a McDonald's or a Taco Bell or whatever on almost every corner. You go down to 395 and you see fast food and these restaurants all over the place. And, even our grocery stores, there's grocery stores all over the place, but the majority of the food that they sell is not really food. It's not fresh produce or whatever. Obviously the grocery stores have their produce section, but a lot of times what you're buying is like year-old produce that's been in a freezer or, something like that. So, having a garden should be like, why is that so taboo? And it's because, profit margins and whatever, that's why. The sad thing is when you look at how capitalism treats, these stores, you go into a Winco or a Walmart or whatever, and you go to their claims department and you look in their garbage and you see how much food that they're throwing away. It's a crime. It should be a crime. It really seriously should be a crime to throw away food like that, to throw away anything like that. It's just complete waste. It goes to a landfill and then, nobody sees any benefit from it. And the sad thing is that a lot of times these companies would rather, anyway, what we can do as a community is we can say, hey, let's grow food. Let's grow food together. Let's eat together. Let's share the abundance that we can create with very minimal effort, with very minimal resource use. We can do it sustainably and we can do it renewably. So if we're talking about energy costs, we can source that with wind and solar. If we're talking about producing nutrients, we can use aquaponics. We can set up little fish tanks. So it's just a matter of getting the right people involved and getting everyone involved, really. But particularly the neighborhoods where people need it. Right now, I live in a fairly, it's a poor neighborhood or whatever. I don't live in a really nice suburban or upper class, even middle class neighborhood. And I'm comfortable here, but I think that even my community could benefit from stuff like that. Yeah, community kitchens are also an awesome idea. Community garden, community kitchen, let's see what recipes we can throw together to, get people excited about community gardens. Cause I think, part of the issue is that we eat such crappy food and everyone's used to eating such crappy food, fast food and processed food, your microwaved foods and top ramens and stuff like that, where it's, people buy the food because it's cheap. And, so when people think about a garden, a lot of times there's not really a lot of context. People are like, well, I don't have time to grow, fruits and veggies. I don't have time to maintain it. And then, when it comes to eating healthier, I think a lot of times people run into that, like that recipe challenge where they're like, well, what the hell am I going to eat? Just a freaking salad every day? Or, so translating the fresh fruits and veggies to good food and good, getting the community together to eat together is an awesome way to bring that all together and bring it to like a final product, So, yeah. But yeah, maybe there's some blind spots. Maybe there's challenges that are preventing people from engaging in those kinds of solutions. So hopefully we can help field that, dig through it, and help people make it happen. So I'm looking up the urban farming guy. Urban farming guys. There's one in Kansas City. They're doing maker spaces too. That's the other thing is maker spaces right now. Richland has their maker space, which is doing awesome actually. Last I heard anyway. I haven't been over there in a while. But maker spaces give people access to tools essentially to create things that they might need. For example, tool sharing, and things like that. I think that Tri-Cities basically. I think Tri-Cities is scratching the surface as far as maker spaces go. I'd like to see more of it. I'd like to see different ways for people to get access to those tools and stuff like that. So we definitely need more of them though, because proximity, when it comes to low-income families, proximity is everything. So people need to be able to get there, and so Pasco needs one, Kennewick needs one, and that's very minimal, in terms of, I think that's at the very least, each city is going to need one. But there's certainly a model for that now in the Tri-Cities, and that's awesome. Confluent Space is what I'm referencing. If you guys don't know about it, Confluent Space, which is right off of G-Way. I don't remember what the side street is, but yeah, they've been open for a while now. I think over a year. Anyway, but they're doing awesome things. They've created community. They've created their own kind of community there that's focused on the same kinds of conversations essentially that we want to be having here on this show. So they're definitely an ally in this effort. And there's a lot of really cool things happening in the Tri-Cities that I think a lot of people just don't know about. And so yeah, we want to point people to solutions. We want to create this energy to make points of access. All right, so you guys have anything else that you want to touch on, or any ideas, then feel free to throw them out. I'm probably going to be wrapping this up here pretty soon. And what will likely happen is I'll develop a schedule that I can commit to, and we'll come back and we'll have these conversations again, and see where this leads. Because yeah, it's one thing to have some kind of to have just a random show, but yeah, let's grow this conversation. Let's see what we can do with this platform. See if we can connect our neighborhoods a little bit better, and make this a meaningful endeavor. And yeah, so I think I've run out of good things to say for now. So anyway, this video will hopefully stay up on Facebook. I noticed that occasionally Facebook will remove videos if they have any music that's copywritten or whatever in it. I've got music that's been playing in the background and at the beginning of the video. So Jessica says, I think dual power is an interesting concept. It sounds a lot like what you're describing. It's kind of a lot to read, but here's a link to run down on. Okay, cool. Dual power fact. Right on. Seattle communists. Yeah, it's funny how people get scared of the word communist. Like, it's just one of those psychological things. I mean, I'm not saying that we should implement communism, but there's definitely no matter what kind of social structure you're looking at, there's definitely things that we can look at in terms of ways to solve certain problems. It's funny, like socialism is the same way. If you say socialism, everybody freaks out, depending on your political lean. And so, yeah, McCarthyism and the Red Scare. Yeah, exactly. It's like, so, but now we have an extension of that. We've got, kind of this renewed Cold War weird thing happening because of, hashtag Russia. And I mean, like, so whatever. I really don't want to dwell on that stuff, but the reason that I brought it up is because, there's lots of solutions. There's lots of ways to organize and do things that might seem taboo at first, or might seem like, oh my God, can you believe that they're talking about this? But the reality is, we're just talking about ways that we can solve problems. And I haven't read the link yet, but yeah, I mean, there's good ideas all over, and we don't need to run away from a topic just because it mentions certain buzzwords. But yeah, living communally, or living, like, for example, I think the closest thing that the U.S. has to that is, what people on the right might refer to as like hippie communes, or communal living. There's actually a lot of examples of communal living within the United States where people are actually living high quality standard of life. There's also organizations, and internationally there's even more examples of, like, for example, in Spain, I think it's in Spain, the company Mondragon, which is a worker self-directed enterprise. It's basically just worker owned company, that has become huge, like monolithic in terms of its, the people own that community or whatever. And it's like this growing enterprise. And there's lots of examples of that here. But yeah, communal living specifically, it's like, people always joke about it. And depending on your political lean, people look at it as if it's some kind of like, I don't know. I don't really understand like the psychology behind being afraid of something like that. I realize that the United States has done a good job in terms of, I don't know if you call it a good job, but steering our attention and steering our focus to be essentially for our labor to be exploited. So capitalists like to have cheap labor readily available so that they can exploit workers and not have to worry about them organizing and demanding a better life. And, to a certain extent, people can achieve a high quality of life by participating, obviously, in capitalism. So, but when you look at the disparity within our country, within our community, we have to organize, and we have to demonstrate that we can provide for ourselves, that we can provide for our neighborhoods, and do so in a way that doesn't require us to be exploited. And understanding those relationships and getting into the nuance of how we solve problems is important. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I classify myself probably as like a post-scarcity anarchist, which basically just means that, I think that we can use automation to create an abundance. And then the way that we organize politically can be decentralized and non-hierarchical. So, and it just means that we're connecting with people real people and solving issues without having to. Anyway, I mean, that's just my personal perspective, but obviously we live in a situation, we live in a society that functions a certain way and it's organized a certain way, and so we have to. The question is, how do we get from here to there, or how do we get from where we are now to a higher quality of life, a higher standard of living? And there's lots of ways to do that, and we don't have to, ruffle feathers or break rules or whatever. I mean, we can do it legit and take care of each other. And so, let's keep that conversation going, and just be real about it. I mean, I think most people don't care. For example, if somebody wanted to create a commune or something, or a communal living type of community, I think most people probably wouldn't care. Most people would probably make fun of it and be like, well, whatever, if you want to go live that way. But I think the animosity comes from that stigma that's so ingrained. But so I think I'm going to go ahead and close it up. I'm going to roll the outro video, and then just keep in mind that we're going to do these regularly. I'll post links to the YouTube page, and I'll get this uploaded so that we can keep everything archived. So thanks again. I'll check you guys later. Thank you for joining me. Appreciate you. Later on.